Attention, students. Remain sealed away in your domiciles for your own protection. The threat is out there, and it's very real. Its name? Ikoria. Never have I seen a set so pushed, so broken, and just thinking about what this is going to do to our sweet, innocent Commander format fills me with a dread so powerful and deep that surely I would soil myself if I had not already done so during the Commander 2020 previews. Attention students, please disregard my previous message. My pants are clean and firmly pressed. I will calmly and rationally go over the most powerful, busted, and broken commander cards from Ikoria for you in just a moment. But as I do, remember, remain in your domiciles and pass the time playing Magic the Gathering with one another via webcam, or Magic Online, or perhaps just by enjoying an audiobook. And I'm happy to provide you with a free audiobook and 2 free originals from Audible, sponsor of this video/intercom announcement. I'm going to recommend one of my absolute favorite books ever, Doomsday Book by Connie Willis. This Hugo and Nebula award-winning novel about time-traveling graduate students would normally cost you $35+, but hey, download it for free and enjoy, or pick whatever you like from Audible's extensive and impressive audiobook library. Free is free. What better time than now to take Tolarian Community College up on this offer? So start listening with a 30-day Audible trial. Choose 1 audiobook and 2 Audible originals absolutely free. Visit audible.com/Tolarian Community or text Tolarian Community to 500-500. Help yourself and help the channel out in the process. Before we begin, I want to be clear. In this video, I am talking spells to be played in the 99 of your decks, not legendary cards that would make great commanders. Presented here are my top 10 picks for spells for your commander decks, while I'll talk about which commanders they may go great with, as well as cool card synergies. I am not picking any commanders in this video. Play who you love, and when you do, consider these from Ikoria. But first, an honorable mention, a graveyard spell that'll have you coming back for more games once you recognize how amazing it truly is. I want to talk with you about, Back for More. Back for More is almost everything we want from a reanimation spell, except for the fact that it's 6 mana. Now, 6 mana isn't necessarily impossible for Commander, and depending on how well you've built your mana base, it's not necessarily hard. But that's still a lot of resources to commit to, and everything has to be in the right place and time. Obviously, decks that are going to want to use this are those that benefit from the graveyard. What I like most about this spell is that it's an instant, so we can use it to surprise our opponents, giving us, for example, a surprise blocker as well as an effective enter the battlefield effect. So let's say we use this with a Rune-Scarred Demon. Rune-Scarred enters the battlefield and we go search for any card we want from our deck. We can, if we so choose, then have Rune-Scarred fight one of our opponent's creatures. And considering Rune-Scarred is a 6/6, that can do some serious damage. And then, as I said, use Rune-Scarred as a surprise blocker. Not to mention, Rune-Scarred might have gone to search up an instant that would have been effective as well. Or just use it to bring in a large attacker during the end step of our opponent. And so during our turn, Summoning Sickness will have worn off, and we can bring back something big like Avenger of Zendikar to swing in for some bad beats. Again, I like cards with cool enter the battlefield effects like Avenger, which you'd then get to play your land for turn to trigger its landfall ability, pump up all the plants, attack for maximum damage. It's a lot of fun. Alright, now let's hit the top 10. Remember, these are all spells for use in the 99, and number 10 is a Voracious card in blue with a nasty bite. The Voracious Great Shark. Voracious Great Shark is a 5/4 shark for 3 generic and 2 blue with flash. And when it enters the battlefield, you counter target artifact or creature spell. Now, I think this is going to see a lot of play in a wide variety of decks. And to me, it is reminiscent of other mono blue cards like Snapcaster Mage and Vendilion Click, where you flash them in, get a powerful effect, and then either have a blocker or a beater. You can add Frilled Mystic to that similarity list, and I think that a lot of decks that run low creatures with potent enter the battlefield effects, especially flicker decks, are going to make good use of the Voracious Great Shark. Commanders with high synergy with this card are Chulane, Thrix the Sudden Storm, and of course Surrak Dragonclaw. Not to mention the fact Great Shark has great synergy with cards like Greater Good, Fling, or Jalira Master Polymorphist. So whether it's working with the commander or with cards in the 99, I think this is going to be a definite pickup for many commander decks. But coming in at number 9 is Quartzwood Crasher, a 6/6 dinosaur beast for 2 generic, double red, and a green. Crasher has trample, and whenever one or more creatures you control with trample deal combat damage to a player, create an XX green dinosaur beast creature token with trample, where X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. So first off, any creature that has a higher power toughness than its mana cost gets my attention, and when they have further upside, as we see here, then they really make my list. There's no drawback to Crasher, and there's not one amazing bonus, but 2. The first being that it has trample for added evasion, the second being that it synergizes with other creatures that have trample to ramp up and amp up your aggro force. I love that you don't even need to attack with this to get the token, so you can hold it back and let other creatures with trample deal the damage, and you'll still create tokens and can easily build up that force. Imagine this with cards like Kessig Wolfrun or Mimic Vat. Oh, I love the idea of sticking this in a Mimic Vat so it can come back every turn to create a haste copy of it, deal the required damage, make a token, and then rinse repeat next turn. Or just combine with Savage Beating to make all our creatures have surprise double strike and an extra combat step to potentially make up to 4 tokens with this. I'm actually surprised this wasn't a made for commander card, but it's from Ikoria, and it's one that you're likely going to want to snap up. Coming in at number 8 is Bastion of Remembrance. Bastion of Remembrance is 2 generic and a black for an enchantment. When Bastion of Remembrance enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. The first card I think of with this, of course, is Blood Artist, only what we've done is switched from whenever a creature dies to whenever a creature you control dies. But with the upswing of us getting each opponent losing 1 life and us gaining 1, instead of having to target someone. So we can look to combine this with some of the Blood Artist buddies like Zulaport Cutthroat and Cruel Celebrant, and have our Aristocrat strategy even more difficult to deal with, as Bastion is an enchantment, and not one of those fragile creatures that dies to removal. With Bastion, all the self-sacrifice decks of black-green and black-green-red now have a Steel Stream, and I can see combining this card with others like Goblin Bombardment, Fumigate, and most Orzhov commanders like Teysa Karlov. A fantastic new addition to our forces. All right, coming at number 7, it's one of the ultimatums, an eerie ultimatum. Double white, triple black, and double green for a sorcery where we return any number of permanent cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. Honestly, I think out of all of the ultimatums, Eerie might be the best of them all, at least as far as Commander is concerned, because we're already playing in a format where all of our permanents have different names. Best of all, Ultimatum affects permanents, not non-land permanents. So unlike Rise of the Dark Realms, which also is worse because it affects all graveyards, we can really get up to some shenanigans by going after permanents that aren't creatures and tailor-make this for our own brand of madness. I'm already dreading my friends Atraxa Super Friends deck using this to bring all their planeswalkers back, but at the same time I'm thinking of sticking it in my Sliver Overlord deck as a game ender which brings back every sliver that my opponents thought they'd wiped clean. If you're in Abzan, you're going to consider this as a fantastic finisher, and I bet you can't wait to make a beautiful mess that ends in that game ender. We're approaching the halfway point, and number 6 is Darnith Magistrate. Magistrate is 1 generic and a white for a 1/3 human wizard, which simply reads, your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. Finally, could I get this on a leyline effect? Cards that shut down your opponents are always powerful and desirable in Commander, and in this case, one that takes care of all of the craziness. And keep in mind that Magistrate stops our opponents from casting their own commanders. This is a card that's that's really going to hurt decks that don't run a lot of removal or rely too heavily on their own commander to function. I can't imagine not wanting to run this Magistrate in any deck in white. From prison builds to multicolored mayhem, Magistrate is possibly a new must-run from Ikoria. Now, number 5 you probably saw coming, and it's the 5-way tie between the new lands. That's right, these lands, which are the first of their kind, are also a major improvement to similar already run ones in Commander. So I feel these are going to make at least a modest impact on the format. And as long as pricing isn't an issue, which, yeah, I know it probably is going to be, but the versatility here is going to be worth it. If any of these are in your hand early game, you have access to 3 options of mana, and in that case, coming into play tapped is well worth it. But with the cycling ability, if you draw them later game where you already have ample mana and don't need a land entering the battlefield tapped, then you cycle them away and get the card draw. But on top of all of that, by them having the basic land types, cards such as Farseek and Perilous Forays will allow you to put them into play early and mid-game. If you're in 3-color Commander and up, you're definitely going to want to pick one of these up. All right, we're at number 4, and we're looking at Fiend Artisan, a card that's making a lot of lists for a lot of formats. I already mentioned Fiend Artisan in my best new cards for Pioneer and referred to it as a kind of Tarmogoyf with more upsides. And when you take a look at this nightmare creature, you can see why. Fiend Artisan is only 2 mana, but it gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard. And you can spend X and a hybrid of black or green to sacrifice another creature, search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less, and put it onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. Essentially, this little guy does everything you want a black and green card to do. It can attack, it can block, and it gets bigger as your graveyard fills with creatures. It helps with the dies or sacrifice triggers of Jund decks like those from Korvold, Fey-Cursed King, and it allows you to cheat creatures into play, like Abzan decks like to do, with commanders like Carador, Ghost Chieftain, while also refilling the graveyard for more. Decks like Meren of Clan Nel Toth and Muldrotha of the Gravetide are ideal for a card like this, where it becomes a kind of Swiss Army knife of sorts that will allow you to have the right and needed play every turn. Use this to sacrifice a card like Green Warden of Marasa, where you can then exile the Marasa for its ability to return something from the graveyard to your hand, while also going to get something like Acidic Slime or Solemn Simulacrum. Yeah, the possibilities are quite potent here, and it is definitely a solid number 4 on my list. We're into the top 3, and surprise, surprise, it's Planeswalker time with Vivian, Monsters Advocate. As much as I hate to admit it, Planeswalkers have become a staple of the Commander format. Each one seems to be raising the bar more and more than the one that came before, and Vivian is no different. Vivian's in green, so she can come down turn 4 or even 3, and she has the static ability, which we saw from War of the Spark can be a problem, to let us look at the top card of our library at any time and cast creature cards from the top of our library. This right off the bat gives us a whole other play zone to be able to use to our advantage, while Vivian's other abilities allow you to protect her, ensuring that it's going to be in play longer than just one turn. The +1 puts a 3/3 beast token into play, which makes for a great blocker for a Planeswalker, and Vivian's -2 sets us up for 2 creatures for 1, as you can cast any creature and go get another of lesser cost. Any creature-heavy commander in green is going to make major work of this card just by having her in play. Number 2 is me repeating myself again, but it is Luminous Broodmoth, Mothra herself. 2 generic and double white for some major monster power. Being in white, you have the most access to the most board wipes, and this card will make the wipe that much more in your favor. And it also gives you some protection against your opponents trying to clean out your ground horde. After a Wrath of God or a Fumigate, you are going to end up with a board of now flying creatures ready to go for the throat. No, wait, that's a black card. And likely those flyers are already up against very little opposition. But just imagine if one of them is something like Odric, Master Tactician, or any other number of clever creatures that you can now use to their fullest effect to attack without being blocked, make use of their enter the battlefield triggers, or just be on the beatdown. This is a card your opponents are going to have to think about and play around from now until, well, forever. Keenan, Bonder Prodigy is broken. It's broken. I'm sorry, but it's green and a blue for a 2/2 human druid. Yeah, I mean, you know, we were complaining about Simic 3 drops, now we got Simic 2 drops. Whenever you tap a non-land permanent for mana, add 1 mana of any type that permanent produced. Okay? 5 generic, a green and a blue to look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a non-human creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Keenan, Bonder Prodigy, in no doubt, impacts the format with power and, yeah, you know what? It's broken fun. Best of all, even if you don't want to build around them as commander, they make their impact in the 99 just as well. And whether it's your Elvish Mystic being benefited or a Chromatic Lantern, your mana resources are going to go out of control with Bonder bonding to them. With all that extra mana, its second ability is not going to be that hard to activate. And while there's already a lot of scary big drops in Standard that we're going to want to look out for, in Commander, the possibilities of what can be put into play are absolutely terrifying. Keenan is one of the closest cards I've seen in a long while that I've actually said, hey, maybe they should ban this right off the bat. And without a doubt, it's my #1 pick for Commander from Ikoria. Now I want to hear from you. What cards in the 99 do you plan to pick up from Ikoria and why? Let me know in the comments below, or perhaps reach out and share in the discussion at the #1 Commander Facebook group. During this time of social distancing, it's great to be able to reach out and interact in positive online communities. And I am a big fan of Spin Down Productions' EDH Commander Facebook group, the #1 Commander-based Facebook group there is. So if you're looking for a large and awesome Commander community, check out the links in this video's description. Or perhaps just put on your favorite headphones and listen to a new audiobook from Audible. Don't forget to visit audible.com/Tolarian Community or text Tolarian Community to 500-500 for your free audiobook, plus 2 Audible originals today.
New Masters set.
What kind of Masters?
Pioneer Masters. They're doing reprints from the Pioneer era in a Masters set. Well, we don't know what's in it yet,
Okay.
although they did say no Shocklands.
Right.
They're not reprinting the Shocklands.
God, they hate reprinting lands, don't they? They're not keen for it for some
Yeah,
reason.
well, they said, you know, Pioneers Masters isn't the best place for a Shockland reprint.